This week on Vaticano, in this special episode, we honor Pope Benedict XVI through the memories and reflections of those who knew him best, unveiling a remarkable life marked by intellectual brilliance, spiritual leadership, and his historic resignation, while highlighting the enduring influence of his legacy on the Church and the world. For this and more, Vaticano starts now. When Pope Francis entered the audience hall in Rome for the weekly general audience shortly after the Christmas holidays on December the 28th, 2022, he carried a message that startled more than just the faithful worldwide. The pontiff addressed a prayer request to the world.
Vorrei chiedere a tutti voi una preghiera speciale.
I ask you all for a special prayer for Pope Emeritus Benedict. Remember him. He is very ill, and ask the Lord to comfort and support him in this witness of love for the Church until the end.
E lo sostenga in questa testimonianza di amore alla Chiesa fino alla fine.
A short time later, the Holy See issued a press release describing the health of the Pope Emeritus as worrying but stable for the moment. 2 days later, on December the 30th, a Holy Mass for Pope Benedict was even held in the Lateran Basilica. Cardinal Angelo de Donatis presided over the Eucharistic celebration, which was attended by numerous faithful, as well as old companions of Joseph Ratzinger, Pope Benedict XVI.
Wer sich da ein bisschen hineinliest,
If you read a little, you can only marvel at the depth of theology he communicated, but always in a language that is understandable and that does not hover above the clouds, but stays closer to the reality of life. The connection has remained, and I am very grateful for the courage he had also to acknowledge his limitations. But what he gave to the people with his life and with his teaching, and above all with his preaching, that remains.
The very next morning, December the 31st, 2022, Benedict XVI took his last breath. The Vatican officially announced a little later.
Con dolore vi informiamo che il Papa Emerito Benedetto XVI è deceduto questa mattina alle ore 9:34 nel monastero Mater Ecclesiae in Vaticano.
The news had quickly spread. Already TV stations from all over the world gathered in front of St. Peter's Square. A little more than 200,000 pilgrims from all over the world took the opportunity to personally bid farewell to him as he lay in state. The Requiem Mass with Pope Francis followed on January the 5th. After the Requiem Mass, the coffin was taken into St. Peter's Basilica and finally buried in the same site as the former tomb of Pope John Paul II.
It's a very emotional moment, and I love this funeral service of the Catholic Church because it combines a deep sense of sadness and real loss at the death of Pope Benedict, but it also contains absolutely firm and resolute expressions of faith, that we know that there is life after death and that the promises of Christ are reliable, and therefore we celebrate this with sadness but with great firmness of faith and confidence in the future.
Many pilgrims may have still remembered the words of Benedict that Pope Francis mentioned the day before at the general audience.
In the words of our dear departed Benedict XVI, I want to remind you, he who believes is never alone. He who has God as Father has many brothers and sisters.
Up next, a deeper look into the life and legacy of Pope Benedict XVI. When Pope Benedict XVI died in Rome, the people of the Eternal City said that it was the second time he had made the city weep. The first time Rome wept because of the German Pope was almost 10 years earlier. On February the 28th, 2013, a snow-white helicopter left the Vatican territory with a man on board who had made history. The search for why he resigned leads us to Bavaria, where about 2 hours away from Munich lies the small town of Marktl am Inn. It was in this house that Joseph Ratzinger was born on April the 16th, 1927.
Marktl am Inn is only one of the many stations on this family's journey. There are some memories from how the very small Joseph celebrated Christmas here for the first and second time, how he stood in front of the Christmas tree with big eyes, how he also experienced the church here. He, the man of words, of books, learned to speak and to believe here, in the midst of a family that held together closely.
Ratzinger was baptized the same night that he was born. The current bishop of Ratzinger's home diocese, Bishop Stefan Oster, recalls another place that had a great influence on the future pope.
He said again and again, Altötting is my spiritual home. His most beautiful and earliest childhood experiences are in connection with Altötting. And he always said, and I think this is not insignificant for his spirituality, he learned the maternal dimension of the church through Altötting. And then, of course, he also processed and articulated that theologically.
According to Bavarians, Altötting is the most important place of pilgrimage in Germany. People have been making pilgrimages to the small town since 1489. And now 1 million pilgrims from all over the world come here every year. Just 1 year after his election as Pope, Benedict also returned here.
When Pope Benedict celebrated the Holy Mass on September 11, 2006, here in Altötting, he went to pay his respects to Our Lady, and to the surprise of all of us, he placed his bishop's ring at Our Lady's feet. This is the ring that his siblings Mary and George had made from an ancient gem. It shows a dove with an olive branch as a symbol of peace. He wore this ring from 1977 until he was elected Pope. Since then, Our Lady wears it in her scepter. So above Our Lady's hand is the ring of Pope Benedict.
In Marktl, we meet Peter Seewald. He came closer to the Pope than any other journalist and published several books of interviews with Cardinal Ratzinger and later also with Pope Benedict. Seewald's extensive biography of the German Pope was published in 2020.
It was a resignation with an announcement. Already in 2010, during our interview for the book, Light of the World, I asked him if he had ever thought of resigning. And he said, not yet. At that time, there was also the Vati-leak story, with regards to other things, and he said that one should not run away. You can only leave when everything is more or less back in order. He also said that for John Paul II, his time of suffering was part of his charism. For himself, however, he did not see it that way, nor did he want to repeat it. In 2010, he stated quite clearly that if a pope is physically and mentally no longer able to carry out his office, then he not only has the right to resign, but also the duty to do so.
Has this decision damaged the papacy?
Difficult question. If before it was true that the Vicar of Christ is taken away only by Christ himself, by God himself, he cannot decide for himself. It is very important to accept that Pope Benedict was seriously ill, not only because of his heart condition, not only because of his left eye, which was blind, not only because of his constant headaches. He also had Parkinson's disease. He noticed that his memory was failing, and above all, what he then revealed to me a few weeks before his death, that he had suffered from insomnia since 2005, already after the World Youth Day in Cologne. All these rumors that there were other reasons for his resignation, for example, VatiLeaks, a conspiracy, or blackmail, and so on, all this is real rubbish and does not correspond to the truth. The truth is, he resigned for health reasons. He was rock-solidly convinced that he would die before the end of 2013 after his resignation.
The resignation was a relief for Benedict, says Zewald, and he was careful about what he said about his successor, Pope Francis.
I always tried as a journalist to get something out of him, and he said, no. In any case, he did not want to give the impression that he was kind of a shadow pope, commenting on the conduct of his successor in office. So there was nothing to get out of him, although of course it was clear that things like the withdrawal of free access for the old Latin Mass affected him deeply. Nevertheless, he vowed obedience to his successor before he could even know him.
To this day, the Vatican has no official regulations providing guidance should there be another papal resignation, but that future pontiffs could also resign from their office is now no longer unthinkable, thanks to the Pope from this small Bavarian town, whose decision revolutionized the papacy. Three years have passed since the death of Pope Benedict XVI. EWTN sat down for an interview with three of his closest companions, Archbishop Georg Ganswein, who served as his private secretary until the end of his life, Professor Rolf Weimann, who is dedicated to preserving and promoting Benedict's spiritual legacy through various initiatives, and Swiss Cardinal Kurt Koch, who shared his personal recollections of the unique qualities of Joseph Ratzinger.
Wir haben hier im Vatikan-Büro in Rom
Here at the EWTN Vatican office in Rome, we'll ask three prominent figures to share with us their impressions of a pope who had a profound impact on Rome and the world. Cardinal Kurt Koch, perhaps I could begin with you and ask, what was your experience of Benedict as prefect, as pope, and also in the period that followed?
Ich habe ihn erlebt als ein Christ.
He was a Christian who was deeply rooted in his faith and who wanted to justify this faith in response to the questions people ask today and pass it on to others. He always was convinced that faith is the best thing that could happen to people.
Erzbischof, Sie haben ihn ja sehr nahe begleitet über viele Jahre.
Archbishop Ganswein, you were close to him and accompanied him for many years. Looking back now, what are the first things you remember when you think back on that time with Pope Benedict?
Die Erinnerungen, sie laufen das ganze Jahr mit mir, aber in Hinblick auf
The memories stay with me throughout the years.
Wird sozusagen die Präsenz, die geistige Präsenz Benedikts immer stärker, nolens volens.
But as the anniversary of his death approaches, Benedict's presence, his spiritual presence, becomes ever stronger.
Lernens, eine Zeit, in der ich einen Mann kennengelernt habe, den ich bereits schon aus der Literatur, aus der Theologie kannte.
It was a great time of learning for me, a time when I got to know a man who I already knew from literature and theology.
Lesen von ihm gelernt zu haben und nun mit ihm zu leben.
But now, this combination of living together and learning from him has influenced my personality and my life in a very special way. For that, I am only grateful.
Professor Weimann,
Professor Weimann, amongst other things, you're organizing the annual Benedict Forum.
Verorten Sie das?
Pope Benedict has left us a rich treasure trove of theological works, in which he provides guidance and principles. Everyone must then apply these in their own way to their own lives. But these principles are valid, and more people are longing for them. I know that there is a great deal of interest.
What are these principles? What does Pope Benedict's theology look like?
Well, first of all, it is a Christ-centered theology, which means that he looks to Jesus Christ in everything. He is the one who gives us meaning. He is the meaning. That is how Pope Benedict describes it. He is the Logos, the one who gives us orientation and direction. And therefore, those who look to Christ will find the true meaning of life.
Und für ihn war es dann natürlich entscheidend.
And for Benedict XVI, it was of course crucial that Jesus Christ is the gateway to God. God is not an unknown being who lives somewhere beyond the world, but one who wants to have a relationship with us humans. I believe that Pope Benedict spent his entire life grappling with this question of God. He also put it this way: there is such a deafness toward God today, and there is nothing more important for the Church, and therefore also for the Pope, than to reopen people's access to this living reality of God.
Zu dieser lebendigen Wirklichkeit Gottes wieder zu erschließen.
Meine Erfahrung ist die, dass es, was das Interesse an der Theologie.
When it comes to interest in theology, or the theological work of Pope Benedict, or Joseph Ratzinger, in my experience there are actually no differences between generations. People are not just looking for theologians, they are looking for witnesses.
I would say that Pope Benedict's entire theology revolves around two central words. First, truth, and second, love. It is not unreasonable to believe that God himself is reasonable, but God is not a mathematical reason, but rather a person that reaches out to people, that loves people. And there, Benedict appealed to people, saying that humans are not only capable of truth, but need truth, and that the real answer to this truth is God himself.
Und dass die eigentliche Antwort auf diese Wahrheit Gott selbst ist.
After the break, join us in Altötting, where the memory of Pope Benedict lives on.
Archbishop Georg Genswein, why was it so important for you to come here to Altötting to the Benedict Forum?
Your question surprises me.
It was no surprise that Archbishop Georg Genswein was happy to come to Germany to participate in the second Benedict XVI Forum.
For me, it is a conscientious obligation to pass on what I experienced with him, what he left behind in terms of heritage and treasures, because this is a great gift for Catholics, for the Church, for the people.
Even after the death of Pope Benedict, interest in his pontificate and theology remains high. In July of 2024, theologians were meeting in the Bavarian town of Altötting, where Germany's most important Marian shrine is located, not far from Joseph Ratzinger's birthplace.
The reason for the conference, which we are having here at Altötting, is to remember the great heritage of Pope Benedict XVI. He wrote the bestseller called Introduction to Christianity, and we've modified the title a little bit, calling it Guidance Towards Christianity. People need guidance nowadays, and that's what we try to offer based on the writings of Joseph Ratzinger, Pope Benedict XVI.
The conference was organized by the association Fundatio Christiana Virtus in cooperation with the Diocese of Passau. Speakers included Cardinal Kurt Koch, prefect of the Dicastery for Promoting Christian Unity, who spoke about the significance of Pope Benedict XVI's theological work.
I miss him very well because he was a very, very kind person. He was a person with a very deep faith, and he was a very intelligent theologian. And these three characteristics in one person is characteristic for Pope Benedict.
He always prayed, celebrated Mass every day, prayed the breviary, and so we wanted to reflect that also during the Congress, that there are times of prayer and times of discussion and times of conferences.
At the Benedict XVI Forum, not only the theological legacy of Pope Benedict was discussed, but also his human side.
Im Sommersemester 65.
I started studying theology in Münster in the summer semester of 1965 and 1966, and that's when I got to know him. I was very impressed by him. I noticed that he never hissed for applause. He was a man who arrived very simply on a bicycle and had an old briefcase. You could really tell that it was important to him to open up the faith to us.
Es sei mein Anliegen, uns also den Glauben zu erschließen.
Sister Christine Felder supported the then Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger in his household in Rome since 1988.
Ja, das war wirklich seine Einstellung. Vielleicht eine kleine Anekdote. Ich war bei ihm, als
I was with him when he was prefect for the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith for 10 years. I thought to myself, this anniversary has to be highlighted somehow. It's something special. I prepared a little dessert with a number 10 on it. He really liked sweet desserts, but on this day he came home, saw the dessert with the number 10 on it, and then he said, "Sister Christine, that's no reason to celebrate." That really got to me, because he had really longed to be able to spend more time with his books and theology, without all the external pressures.
Belastungen auch widmen zu können.
Please take us back to that night when the white smoke came and Pope Benedict was elected. Were you in St. Peter's Square then?
Nein, ich hatte es geahnt.
No, but I had suspected it. My whole community was sitting in front of the TV. They came from Vespers and saw that the bells of St. Peter were starting to ring. I thought I wouldn't be able to make it to St. Peter's Square. I was the only one who stayed at home and sat in front of the TV. You won't believe it. The cardinals come out, the announcement follows. Cardinal Protodeacon Jorge Arturo Medina begins and says the name Josephum. And at that moment, we had a power failure in our house, and I didn't hear the surname.
Den Radio aufzudrehen, bis ich das organisiert hatte, hatte ich schon einen Anruf von einer alten Dame in Vorarlberg.
Then I ran to find a radio. By the time I finally found a radio, I had already received a call from an old lady from Austria. And then it was clear to me that it was Joseph Ratzinger.
Und dann war es mir klar, es ist Joseph Ratzinger.
Nachdem Papst Benedikt zurückgetreten ist.
After Pope Benedict resigned, did he change? He had previously said that he was tired, that he no longer had any strength. Was he bitter and disappointed?
Nein, also verbittert.
No, he wasn't resentful or disappointed in any way. I never saw him like that. Basically, he was a person whom I experienced in all phases of his life, from 1988 to the end, with great peace and contentment, or perhaps I should say, with great trust in God. His resignation as a pope was a decision that he made before God, and I believe that he always remained at peace before God.
The organizers and also the participants of the Benedict XVI Forum are convinced that Benedict XVI still has a lot to say today.
Oh, there are several of his works that remain. They are surely reread in the next years to come. And there is his great testimony, his life, as he was a person who believed deeply in God and who tried to do the will of God in all the different circumstances that he did not look for, but that were given to him.
I think his legacy is a deep theology that shows us that reason and faith are not opposed to each other, and that our intellect, our brain, our head, our heart, our soul, that they all belong together, and that we should search for the Lord and that we search for Jesus in all of this.
Even though Benedict XVI spent the last years of his life in seclusion as Pope Emeritus, people have not forgotten him.